views on the subject. Hello.
Yeah, Nageshji.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
a very good.
it's over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, a very good evening to all fellow foundermen, and giving us an opportunity to express our thought on this topic. I was earlier thinking whether this topic is really that important, but when I was started preparing it and going deeper and deeper, I came to know that this is one of the most important topic which every foundryman should know from customer perspective as well as from supplier perspective. So Nageshji, I would like to share my screen. Can I do so?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. You are allowed to share your screen.
Yeah, can you see this presentation?
Yeah, perfectly. We can see it.
Okay.
You can make it in presentation mode. That would
Yeah. So Abhishji has already covered this. So basically this trade deficit, we have a huge trade deficit, and that import and export statistics, we have gone through it. So I will skip that. And from a foundry perspective, I have put one example of a common casting of, say, automotive grade casting of diesel engine cylinder block. Say a hypothetical example of 80 rupees per kg is a manufacturing cost. So out of this cost, you can see the breakup of this cost allocation. The raw material constitutes of 60% and fixed cost 20 and variable cost, which is 20%. So you can understand that how much it impacts on cost per se, the cost of the casting. So now we further drill down this raw material part of 60%. That 60% also, if you further drill down, you will find that metal cost itself is 84%, which comprises of major part like steel and pig iron and all, where we have a very little control on this quality. It is a cost driven. From I'm talking from this foundry perspective, and then further, as by descending order, the raw material cost comes is 11% from core area, where that we use sand, resin, coatings, etc., and then molding and fettling area. So this is what is our cost consideration. So we must understand the importance of the raw material. One example I have put over here, that rejection impact on the cost. Say one foundry who is producing 10,000 metric ton of the good casting, sellable casting, and if 1% rejection of that foundry, which is 100 metric ton, and if you consider that casting cost is 80 rupees per kg, then 1% rejection impact itself is a 46 lakhs per year. It's a huge impact. So now we understand that how much this raw material plays an important role. So these are the 3A, 3B is nothing but that recoverable cost and non-recoverable cost. Recoverable cost is nothing but that scrap we are again putting into the furnace and getting it melted and going for that next casting. But this total impact of a size of 10,000 metric ton foundry per year is a 1% rejection increases the 46 lakhs. So from this perspective, we have also learned about these Be Indian, Buy Indian, Vocal for Local campaign, Atmanirbhar. Amishji has also explained this very precisely, and very clarity has brought into this. This simple principle, if we follow, we help the country to rebuild its economy and become self-reliant. So now its onus is on us, being as a foundry manufacturer or foundry supplier, how we can realize this Atmanirbharta or this Vocal for Local campaign. And if we follow this simple principle, we'll help the country in large extent to become self-reliant. Now, being a consumer perspective, what we all being expected to ensure that global quality with cost competitive price to retain and to survive in the global market. So my thrust is the only 2 points. One is that we should be cost competitive, because that definitely that competition is coming from the China, that trade war will be there, which Mr. Sandeep ji has also mentioned at the beginning. And if we want to compete with the China, then we have to be cost competitive. And if we want to, as a manufacturer, cost competitive, then raw material being as the 70%, it plays a role. Then definitely the help and the support is needed from the raw material supplier. So these are the significance of foundry raw material from uh, consumer perspective. One, this I have divided into few of the pointers. So one is the strategic intent. This is like, I would put it into this way, that long-term business association, that we should work collaboratively, that manufacturer supplier as a partner. It is not so that supplier has got an entry, so he push his product with low cost and later on that product is not successful. Then we lose the trust, we lose the loyalty, and those issues will come. I can give you one example. When discussion was going on, one of the supplier had a discussion. He wanted to push his one raw material, and he was emphasizing on cost and quality and all. One of the global supplier, I would say, I will not name. And after discussion, he left few of the paper on my desk. I was not aware. So while I was arranging the desk while going home, so I saw that paper. There was a clearly written that this is the introductory price X, and after 6 months we can go for price rise, and we can make up the losses. And after next 6 months, because this company is going, they have a strategy of a single source and all, so we can take the advantage and recover our loss. So कहने का मतलब ये है कि this kind of a thing, that loyalty is very very important to have a long run business in this area. Then second part is that responsiveness towards the customer pain areas. Customer may come across with many pain areas, like some kind of quality issues. Immediate response is needed from that raw material supplier. So that responsiveness, that agility, and that responsiveness is very very essential. Then price strategy against international price volatility. Recently we have seen last year, the one and a half year back, that because of these pollution issues in China, most of the raw material small scale industries were closed down because of that smog and all those issues. And during those days, there was an acute shortage of the raw material, like binders and those alloying agents and those things, and where that the entire pressure was transferred from that supplier to the customer. I'm not saying that supplier should work with these losses and all. Definitely we can have a win-win situation where supplier can reduce this profit margin. He can work on his operational efficiency measures, like what as a customer they are doing. As a tier one or manufacturer like automobile, we do not have a liberty to increase our prices of our vehicle, otherwise our share will go down miserably. Then fourth part is that supply chain vulnerability. Those things are very well to be considered by the raw material suppliers, because the supply chain itself is that they should use best of the practices in their supply chain, like JIT, like FIFO, that obsolescence should not be there. They should ensure on time in full, minimum batch quantity, where the cost of raw material can come down for the manufacturer. So then they can definitely go for that digitization. There we can see that variability reduction, dependency on the manual aspect. So this digitization is going to play a major role to supplier end also. Coming to that quality, few of the pointers I have identified are like these are the high quality products, zero rejection, rework wastages. That is by default has to be there, and we are ensuring it. I can just give you an example, because earlier, since I am in Mahindra Foundry since last 27 years, I have witnessed uh, 2 decades back, most of our critical raw materials, if I take an example of top 10 raw material, so out of the top 10 raw material, 70% of the raw material were supplied, we were getting from imported raw material, because we were not having the assurance or not having that kind of a confidence with that local raw material suppliers, specifically in the areas of resin, coatings, alloying agents, and those areas. And dependency of those global suppliers, imported raw materials was very, very high. But if you see today, now this our local raw material supplier also has done remarkable improvement, remarkable change has brought into this, and we can see, we can witness those kind of things during whenever we do visit to our IFX, or whenever we do visit to GIFA, we come to know that those our local raw material supplier are dominating, or they have their dominant presence vis-a-vis these global raw material suppliers. It's a very good sign, and we are saying that reliability and consistency also. Why it is reliability and consistency is like reliability at the launch of the raw material. It's a kind of a thing, is the one, once you are entering or you are showing the result as a trial batch or as a sample batch. But consistency is that the dependency of the manufacturer on the raw material supply is very, very large. So consistency means that manufacturer expect the durability of the raw material. It is like a fill it and forget it. Once he has introduced that raw material supplier, then raw material should not give any trouble in terms of quality issues. So those, all those aspect has to be taken care by the raw material supplier, right from choosing his primary raw material from sources, his traceability, consistency, durability, he can ensure, and he can ensure that his customer has been protected. Another issues we do foresee that raw material testing facility. Many example we see that there are many limitations in front of the manufacturer. Suppose we come up with some huge rejection, suddenly spurt in the rejection, and we are unable to prove that it is because of the raw material. Though we know that the only change event is the raw material, but we are unable to prove that, because that lab report shows that everything is okay. Now, the expectation from manufacturer is that whatever lab testings are there, raw material suppliers can come forward. They should be more open. They should be, they should upgrade. They should educate that manufacturer to add few furthermore parameters of the testing, and the testing has to be more objective rather than subjective, because it is very difficult to prove that raw material is rejected from manufacturer perspective. So these kind of things definitely supplier can take it forward and bring, or they can earn the loyalty in long run. Then next part is that continual improvement efforts to upgrade existing product. They should have that R&D facility. It is not something copied and tried and tested product from some other supplier, because it will not give the results from long run. So they should have that kind of a facility at their end. They can even charge the premium. Customer is ready to pay that premium, provided they are getting that reliable and consistent raw material quality throughout their journey of production. Now, cost of the products. Cost competitive is definitely, raw material has to be cost competitive, because most of the constitute of the cost of his casting is from raw material. Then second is no additional cost incurred. What does it mean is that no additional cost incurred means raw material supplier, to ensure that cost, price strategy and all, somewhere some elements or some kind of filler elements or something has been reduced, or it has been some inferior quality of the his primary raw material has been put into this, and in turn we land up into that some other issues, like we need to add more percentage of resin to get that strength and those parameters, or some filler agent we need to add, like for example that issues of quality, like we are suppose we are facing a waning issue, then anti-waning agent you add. So though on paper, on one sheet and isolation and in silo, we'll find that raw material cost is competitive. But if you say that at the end, at the casting realization stage, we find that because of this, all this filler agent or some kind of addition of that percentage will end up into that same or even higher cost. So those things are definitely can be taken care by the raw material supplier. So better yield, definitely, as I mentioned, that percentage of addition should be, if we are getting 1% desired strength of that resin, so that raw material supplier can take a challenge and target how we can reduce it to 0.9%, 0.8%, and so on, that year on year improvement. So this will definitely give the win-win benefit to that raw material as well as raw material supplier as well as manufacturer. Cost of inventory, definitely those things raw material supplier can ensure at his end, to ensure his the cost of raw material at his end as well as the cost of raw material at customer end. So we can have that economies batch of quantities and those number of inventory turns, minimal inventory levels. I have witnessed one foundry in Toyota where that raw material, maximum raw material inventory was 1.5 day, and there was a minimum raw material inventory was 2 hours. So that kind of inventories are been successful. It has been maintained in foundries in Toyota. So you can just understand that this inventory cost, if manufacturer is going to get the advantage on that inventory cost, he can reduce the cost of this his component, and definitely we can sell more products globally, and we can become uh, definitely vocal for local. That environmental impact, definitely, that zero environmental footprint, zero hazardous product substance, zero waste, landfill, those issues supplier can ensure, where that it should not become a burden to the manufacturer how to dispose of those kind of cartoons or plastic and wastages kind of things. Definitely they can work on that recyclable packaging, environmental friendly packaging, then recycling of even sand and kind of a thing. Why that should become a responsibility of only manufacturer? The recycling of the sand, for example, now it's a very serious issue, has it has become for every foundryman, how to dispose of the sand. Why can't the raw material can have a strategy to take back his all those disposal, and he can convert it and add value to his product, and it can become a win-win situation. So this kind of this from these foundry customer perspective, I thought I should share the inputs. And definitely that PPAP is a very powerful tool which every manufacturer and raw material supplier can use it. Now how much depth he can go, we can decide the level of the depth and criticality. Out of the 23 elements, they can select top 4, top 5, top 7, depending on the criticality of the raw material. So this is all from my side. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Amarji,
so
thank you.
yeah, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank you very much. And it was really insight of a material user. And you have given a lot of hints and a lot of ways how we can go ahead. Now, I would like to request Manish ji to take the dais, and he can express his view.